Well, welcome back to a new week of Locked On SMU, and I guess the Mustangs are the most corrupt program in college football history.
You are Locked On SMU, your daily podcast on the SMU Mustangs, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's going on, everybody? Welcome to another edition of Locked On SMU, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every single day. Hey, thank you for making us your first listen of the day as we head into week 3, 4? Week 4 of Locked On SMU. My name is Grayson Singleton, man. Thank y'all so much for making me a part of your day as well. This episode today is brought to you by Monarch Money. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONCollege at monarchmoney.com. for 50% off your first year with Monarch. Hey, coming up on the show today, Greg McEloy has an interesting take on whether or not SMU can follow up its playoff appearance from last year. We told you Josh Pate's opinion a couple weeks ago. We're going to go through Mr. McElroy's later on the show. Also, I love Pro Football Focus. You're going to learn this about me. I love PFF, and they like this one SMU position group. So we're going to go through that. But first, you see it right there on the box. There it is. If I can, but bigger. Yeah, there it is. So, is SMU the most corrupt program in college football history? Now, you may be wondering, why on God's green earth is that our opening topic? Well, I told you last week that Rhett Lashlee didn't make a whole lot of friends with his comments about the SEC's depth. And while I wouldn't have made them, I understand there's a lot of politicking going on, but to most people, that probably didn't come out as the greatest thing to say. But Paul Finebaum of ESPN has been relentlessly torching Rhett Lashlee ever since that take. And here's the latest thing he had to say. This comes out of the UGA Wire, which is the University of Georgia. This is from the USA Today. In 1987, says Finebaum, quote, SMU shut down their football program. When he is making fun of the SEC of winning national championships, SMU is the most corrupt program in the history of college football. Now, obviously, what he's talking about is the year 1987, when the program shut down because they were paying players to play on the team, and it took, 3 decades and most of my, if not all of my current lifetime on earth to make itself, relevant again in college football. Okay, Paul, let's calm down here. Let's go through the list of scandals. And I know he just limited this to college football, but let's go to college sports for a second. Because I think just paying players doesn't necessarily make SMU the most corrupt program in college football. Okay, here we go. Penn State had that thing that happened. We all know what that thing is. I don't think I need to go any further there. Louisville and Rick Pitino had that thing happen. I think we all know what I'm talking about there. Michigan had a plant just stealing signs. Do we think it's more ethical or less ethical to steal other people's signs or to pay people to play college football? I'm pretty sure we all can agree that the former, it probably is less ethical. If we go to college baseball, what did we have at Alabama a couple of years ago? Oh, I don't know. People betting on games that they were either a player or a coach in. What did we just have in the state of Iowa? We had a mass thing going on where multiple players got caught for betting on games. So, Paul, I know we like to be prisoners of the moment. I know it's a very natural human reaction, but we were paying players. And look, don't get me wrong, it was illegal at the time. I get all that. And was SMU doing it in a bonkers way that blew every other under the table thing that we all know was going on and was going on up until payment of college athletes became legal? Absolutely it was. We all know this. But they were just giving them money. There were no strippers involved. There were no crimes committed. What I just laid out had actual law enforcement investigation. The gambling that was going on at Iowa and Iowa State, encompassing both of those schools, There was actual law enforcement being involved in there. What was going on in Alabama, where a coach, I believe, resigned? I may have to relook at those details again. There was law enforcement involved in there. The Penn State thing, that was probably one of the most egregious things that went on in a program in a long time. The thing that was going on at Louisville with the basketball program, one of the more egregious things that has gone on in a long time. These are all issues that apply morally, right? All this is morality when it comes to those issues. Paying players is not that. So while SMU set the bar for NCAA discipline, which it certainly did, because the NCAA has never given out the death. Think about this. Think about this for a second, by the way. Penn State happened. Louisville happened. The two Iowas happened. The NCAA has not even considered the death penalty. By the way, Baylor happened with what was going on over there. Back, 10 years ago? That cost Art Briles his job. SMU paying players pales in comparison to all of that. So, I know I'm stopping short of saying what Paul Finebaum said is absolute nonsense, that SMU is the most corrupt program. If you just go by the discipline they received, then yes. But let's be real. The NCAA doesn't want to hand out another death penalty, and I don't think it will ever hand out another death penalty again. But if you actually look at other things that have happened since 1987, they're a lot worse. Oh, and also, by the way, can we not let bygones be bygones here? For real. There is the age-old argument that, well, everything they did is legal now, and then there is the tongue-in-cheek explanation of, well, they were just ahead of their time. They were pioneers. Okay, fine. True. Everything that they did is legal now because they were just paying players. They were just giving them money. But here's the actual. But here's the actual thing that we need to pay attention to. Nobody involved from back there is there today. I think that's the most obvious part. You can't say SMU is corrupt as a program because if you phrase it the way Paul Finebaum says, it makes it seem like that corruption is still ongoing. That's not what's going on here. Does SMU use resources to pay players and attract players? Yeah. Guess what? It's legal. Can we get over 1987? Paul, anybody who still wants to hearken back to that, can we get over it? Nobody who had anything to do with that is making decisions right now. And you know how I would know that? Because nobody else was going to have them make decisions after the damn program had to shut down for a year. You think that looks great on a resume? Hey, I was just a part of this whole thing that now literally doesn't exist for a year. Hire me. Are we nuts? None of the people that have anything to do with what is going on. Rhett Lashley, I have no idea how old he was back then. He would have been an infant. No more older than a toddler. SMU now is not a corrupt program. The program that is resurrected from the dead, because they got the death penalty, is two different things from what happened in 1987. Can we not get over this? They were paying players, great. Let's move on from that. But nobody involved with that is involved now. And to our knowledge, nobody now at SMU is doing anything corrupt. So there's too many things that have had actual brushes with the law, actual brushes against what is deemed humanly decent in the last 3 decades to even come close to saying that SMU is the most corrupt program in college football history. And you know what? I guess I will say it, Paul Finebaum. That's nonsense. That's absolute nonsense. We're in 2025 now. We're about to enter the 2025 season, 38 years after SMU got the death penalty. I think we can get over it by now. That doesn't need to factor into how we talk about this program now. Can we disagree with what Rhett Lashlee said? Absolutely. I don't agree wholeheartedly with Rhett Lashley's comp to the SEC. But it's not going to trigger in my mind things that happened 14 years before I was born. That's not going to happen. All right. Fun way to open up the show. Coming up next, stick with us here on Locked On SMU because Greg McEloy had actually something positive to say about the Mustangs. We'll talk about it next. Ever wish managing your money felt easier? With Monarch Money, it can. Whether you're growing your savings or planning a big purchase, Monarch puts you in the driver's seat. It's like having your own personal CFO, giving you full visibility and control over your finances. Monarch Money is more than just a budgeting app. It's a complete financial command center. You can track all your accounts, investments, and spending in one place. So in addition to managing your money, you're also building wealth. If you share things with people and you're both trying to accomplish your financial goals, having an app to do that and help both of you stay accountable is pretty cool. So take control of your finances with Monarch Money today. Use code LOCKEDONCollege at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. That's monarchmoney.com, code LOCKEDONCollege for half off your first year with Monarch Money. Okay, welcome back to Locked On SMU. And since you made it this far, go ahead and subscribe to that YouTube page. Go ahead, click that notification button. That way you'll get notified anytime that we go live. As from now on, we're going live and bring new YouTube episodes at noon Central Time. And by the way, check out the podcast on Spotify, Apple Podcast, or wherever you find your podcast. Thanks for sticking with me. I'm Grayson Singleton. Greg McEloy. We opened the show talking about Paul Finebaum. We'll talk about Greg McEloy now because a couple of weeks ago, Josh Pate named SMU as one of those programs that make the college football playoff that could reasonably see a regression in 2025. And while there is a lot of merit to that, a lot more merit to them being the most corrupt program in college football history, Greg McEloy has taken an opposite view of this. This is what Greg McEloy had to say. Quote, a team that made the college football playoff last year that I think has a chance to be back in the mix, the SMU Mustangs. They bring back a veteran quarterback in Kevin Jennings. I'm very optimistic about his growth. He made a ton of plays last year, but sometimes the fundamentals where he was maybe too deep in the pocket, maybe tried to do a little too much, maybe left the pocket a little too early. Maybe some of those things can be cleaned up, but the playmaking ability has been on display since he took over as a starter there at the midway point last season. I love Coach Rhett Lashlee. I love their offense. I think they can make it very difficult on the opposing defense. We'll stop the quote there, but he goes on to praise R.J. Maryland, who he thinks can be a potential All-American type tight end. He does have questions about the wide receivers. He has questions about replacing Brashard Smith. Basically, all of the things that we've discussed here on the first couple of weeks of Locked On SMU. But I think taking the optimistic approach is the right one here for SMU. And I don't say this blindly as somebody who covers the team and as somebody who's a fan and a DFW native. I don't say that blindly because what I'm used to and what I've seen throughout the history of college sports is progression, especially progression under a quality coaching staff. And when a coaching staff, to me, has cemented itself as a quality coaching staff, then that's when I can pass that down to the players and say, I expect you to grow because you're under this staff that has solidified itself as a good one. So obviously the prerequisite to Kevin Jennings becoming better as a quarterback and progressing in his development and getting better at some of the fundamental things like McElroy talked about, the precursor to that is, well, how good is your coaching staff? Rhett Lashlee, a great offensive mind. Casey Woods, fantastic offensive mind. De'Aaron King, I think he's going to be a star in the coaching world. I think that dude is going to be a star and a stud when he as he continues to develop himself as a coach. So those are three dudes right there. Head coach, offensive coordinator, quarterback coach, that I think are A+, A, and rising, but just because he's rising, we'll say A-, B+ for De'Aaron King. That is a strong, strong infrastructure. There are a ton of quarterbacks across the country that would love to be under the infrastructure and developing under the support system that Kevin Jennings is. I 1000% believe that. So if we can project growth, and we know Kevin Jennings already has the mindset of, I got a lot to rectify from last year. Even though he led the team to an 8-0 conference record, he did so at the back half without his star tight end, who probably would have ended up as the leading receiver on the team that year. He's still saying, no, I got unfinished business, man. So you know he wants to grow. And then you couple that with the fact that I think he is going to grow, just because that's what happens when you go through a whole offseason getting all the QB1 reps, and you go through the whole offseason being the focal point of your coaching staff. You marry those two things together with the talent that's already there. Now I think you got something if you're Kevin Jennings. So I think he is the start of all of this. His development will determine how high SMU can continue to ascend in 2025. But the other piece to this, I think, outside of what we're going to talk about to close up shop, is interestingly enough, the schedule. And I keep finding new ways to look at this schedule and look at what it looks like if SMU gets to the college football playoff again. And if they get to the college football playoff again, there would be no doubt they earned it. Now, did they earn it last year? Absolutely. Because, look, no matter your schedule, it's hard to go 8-0 in conference play. It just is. That's the reality of the situation, is that is not an easy thing to do, much less back-to-back years. And if SMU is going to get back to the college football playoff, they will have had to be a really good team. Because if they're in the conversation for the college football playoff, at worst, they have lost 2 games to Clemson and Miami. I think a third loss probably knocks them out. In a 16 team, I don't know, but a 12 team and you're in the ACC, I think that knocks you out if you have a third loss. But if they're in the conversation with at maximum 2 losses, they're a really good football team, because they would have beaten a Baylor team. They would have beaten a TCU team. Both were 9-win teams a year ago that returned their starting quarterbacks. That matters. They would have defeated Syracuse. They would have defeated Louisville. And we'll see how they play Clemson and Miami. But if they go into that 10-2, maybe that's good enough to get them back to the ACC championship game, which, by the way, McEloy was highly impressed with them in that ACC championship game. And maybe the fact that they came back and made that game close ultimately gave them the nod to get to the playoff last year. I think you will have seen the progression, and that team would have earned the playoff spot. Because here's what we're going to find out. If SMU is a bad football team, or if SMU is a team that takes a steep regression, we're going to know. We're going to know. And that's what's so good about a schedule like this, because it's not the toughest schedule in the world, but it is a good schedule with favorable breaks, but also some tough games. So if SMU is really good, we're going to know. But if SMU wins 8 games and they regress, we're also going to have a very traceable measure as to how they did that. But I do think the optimistic approach that McElroy gave is the appropriate one, because we love to project progression. And I think you can do it with Kevin Jennings. I think you can do it with this position group that we're going to talk about to end the show. I think you can see it with a guy like Cam Robinson, who's going to take over as another edge rusher replacing some really talented guys. I mean, your top 2 sackers from last year are gone. Elijah Roberts and Jafari Harvey. But opposite Isaiah Smith, you're going to have Cam Robinson, presumably. And he's going to have to make a progression. Alex Kilgore, you're banking on a progression. A receiver like Jordan Hudson, you're banking on a progression. Derek McFall, you're banking on a progression. But we're not banking on anything that we haven't seen before in college football. And that married with the coaching staff, I think it's why you take the optimistic approach here. Instead of saying, I see them taking a step back. I don't see it. I don't see that being the approach that I'm going to take on July 28th. I'm going to take the optimistic because I know the staff is good and they can get that progression out of those players. That's why I'm going that route. All right, one more segment to go to close up here on a Monday edition of Locked On SMU. We'll talk about PFF and why they like this particular position group. Stay tuned. This episode is brought to you by Gametime as well. We've all been there, logging on early and waiting forever for concert tickets to go on sale, only to lose your spot for a show you've been dying to see. Live music should be about making memories, not dealing with the stress of getting tickets to get in the building. But that's where Gametime comes in. Gametime makes getting concert tickets faster and easier than ever. Prices actually drop as it gets closer to showtime, but you can save up to 60% off with their killer last-minute deals. So if you're tired of the endless scrolling, trying to find the best deal, Gametime's zone deals pick the best seats in your section for you. They also have a panoramic seat view, so you know what the view is going to look like before you purchase the ticket. It's my favorite function of Gametime. I love it. So take the guesswork out of buying concert and show tickets with Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCOLLEGE for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONCOLLEGE for $20 off. Download the Gametime app today. Last minute tickets, lowest price, and it's always guaranteed. All right, one more segment to go here on Locked On SMU. Thanks for tuning in with me as well. I'm Grayson Singleton. So Pro Football Focus is a company that I am a huge fan of, and you're going to see me reference Pro Football Focus all the time. The longer you follow the show, the more you will see me reference Pro Football Focus. But PFF released its top returning safeties in the ACC. And they do their little grades, and the grades are out. Number 1 is Terry Moore from Duke. I don't think we're surprised there. Terry Moore is a really good player. Numbers 2 and 3, SMU's Isaiah Wacobia and SMU's Ahmad Moses. Wacobia earned an 88.1 grade from PFF, which is excellent. Ahmad Moses, 86.3 grade from Pro Football Focus. And I love Pro Football Focus because they take into account everything in the game. Now, do their grades translate perfectly to everything? We all know they don't. But that's the thing with analytics. And by the way, it's just a thing with everything in measuring sports performance. Nothing's going to get it 100% right. But I don't think Pro Football Focus misses the mark, but so much, which is why I cite it. And they take into account so much and so many ways that guys impact the game that I think it's a noteworthy company to cite. So, 2 of the top 3 returning safeties for 2025 are from SMU. Isaiah Wacobia and Ahmad Moses. Now, so what are we getting back in terms of production from last year for these two? Well, Wacobia was the second leading tackler on the team. Ahmad Moses was the third. Combined between them, it's 173 tackles coming back. Combined between them, 6 interceptions. A forced fumble thrown in there as well. So 7 caused turnovers between the two. You'd be hard-pressed. There may be individual safeties in college football. Maybe a Terry Moore would be one. A Michael Taft would be one. The kid at Alabama, whose name is slipping my mind right now, could be another one. But find me a better safety duo than those two. I'll wait. There may be one out there that I'm skipping over. Caleb Downs is a hell of a safety at Ohio State. Hell of a safety. But them two together is something special. And I love safeties for this reason. Corners, you generally know where they're going to be. Most off-ball linebackers, you know where they're going to be. Safety is the one position you can get so damn creative with if your defensive mind is creative enough, which I think SMU's got a guy that can be that creative. But the bevy of things that Isaiah Wachovia and the bevy of things that Ahmad Moses, can do from that safety position, you can have them play in the box. You can have them rush the passer because they play with their hair on fire. Obviously, they're going to come up and run support. I don't think if you're game planning as the opposing offense, you know what to do about those two. And the fact that those grades are so high proves that they can do a lot of different things well. Because it's not about if you can just do a lot of things, but can you do a lot of things well? And obviously, they have their strengths, but they are versatile. And I think if you have versatile safeties on your defense, that just makes your defense that much more weirder to prepare for, especially with dudes like them, because it's not like they're huge people. It's not like you can take just one quick glance and be like, oh, there's that dude. Isaiah Wachovia is no small person. He's 6'1", 205, but he's not the most, physically imposing player on the field. Ahmad Moses is 5'10". So them dudes can move anywhere. And if you're not on your game, you are like, oh, where did he come from? I didn't know he was there. And I think Scott Simons can move those guys around. So that's why I love safeties. Covering Oklahoma and covering Oklahoma State the first few years of my career like I have, I've seen what you can do with a lot of safeties. Oklahoma State had one, Kendall Daniels, Tanner McAllister, Jason Taylor, guys like that were moved around and did a bevy of things. Oklahoma this year has Robert Spears-Jennings playing free safety, and he's one of those guys that can cover. He's got to be better at that, but also can come up and thump in the run game. And I think SMU has something similar to that with the duo of Wachovia and Moses. And when you have that can really throw offenses off. So that's why I'm with Pro Football Focus. And when I'm not gonna lie to you, when I first saw that caught my eye, and I was like, ooh, finally somebody other than me. Because I've been excited about Ahmad Moses and Isaiah Wachovia coming back. But somebody other than me was like, no, this is gonna serve some value. And those two can definitely bring you some value. And we talk about projecting progression. If those two get better, this defense can still be as nasty as it was a season ago. It may look different, but those two can be all ACC type players. All right, that'll do it for this edition of Locked On SMU, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Thank you for making us your first listen of the day. For your second listen, head over and check out the portal with our man Brian Smith, who's got all the updates of everything going on in the world of college athletics. My name is Grayson Singleton. We'll talk to you tomorrow here on Locked On SMU. Take it easy, everybody.